Welcome to the Margin of Sanity podcast. Today we're going to talk about doublethink, my worst investing mistake. How a pick and shovel play on the weed industry turned into a fraud-riddled disaster. Thanks for checking out the Margin of Sanity, and if you're listening on a podcast player like Spotify, YouTube, or Apple Podcasts, just know that this entire write-up is available for free on the Margin of Sanity Substack. If you're enjoying the show and you want to show a little love, drop a comment, a like, or a 5-star review. That engagement really does help me out, and it helps other people find the show. All right, doublethink. Let's get into it. Do you remember 2021? I do. I remember it well. Stocks had rebounded big time, and those of us who were buying during the COVID sell-off were feeling pretty damn good. I was only 2 years into my investing journey then, and my chest was rather puffed. I felt confident. I had taken risks, and they had paid off. We were making money. But something else was going on too. Part 1. There's a bubble. See, when I began buying stocks in 2019, the investing world looked a bit different than it does today. There weren't thousands of YouTube channels and TikTok investing gurus littering the internet with nonsense. During the pandemic, however, the investing landscape changed. Thanks to Robinhood, stimulus checks, and people being forced to stay inside, investing became fashionable. I was rather disturbed to see family, friends, and neighbors, people who didn't know a holding company from a hole in the ground, suddenly talking about some new stock they were buying. In fact, this was such a common experience that a friend of mine and I regularly sent each other Big Short memes, specifically this one.
Hey, there's a bubble.
It was a fun joke, but it was also a strange experience. I was hearing people say things that I previously would have regarded as bad dialogue in a movie about a bubble. Things like Kathy Woods is the new Buffett. Yeah, that one really wedged a wrench in my bicycle wheels. That's a real thing somebody twice my age said to me. Someone with no investing experience until that year. Someone who was literally holding SQQQ. Imagine holding something that is triple short the NASDAQ while also owning ARK's flagship funds. This was lunacy, and it was everywhere. Super Bowl ads about crypto, Robinhood with the damn confetti, and my neighbor in Brooklyn who said he was invested in EVs, but was actually just the owner of shares in a SPAC that had been rumored to acquire an EV company. And on it went. My roommate, an accountant by the way, was invested entirely into an altcoin recommended to him by his newly divorced day trader friend who used the word Rari non-ironically in real life. That's Ferrari in idiot speak. Oh, and let's not forget the Croatian neighbor girl who asked me to explain investing to her, which I spent hours doing possibly with the hopes of a different sort of ROI, only to turn around and spend $3,000 a month on a Forex trading class.
What do you do?
I'm in commodities.
Good luck with that.
Now look, I was not a seasoned investor, and nor was I one who had avoided making mistakes. But even I knew there was trouble afoot, and I was about to make my own mistake. I may have been sure there was a bubble, but I wasn't going to move to cash. Instead, I decided I was qualified to navigate this froth. After all, it was the everything bubble. As far as I could tell, the froth was unavoidable. I would have to try and find some companies who could outgrow these current expectations. So who better than a company whose business is growth? Part 2. Pot stocks. I never had a taste for the sticky icky personally, but damn if everyone else I knew seemed to consume weed constantly. Seemed like 70% of my friends smoked pot on a regular basis, and 50% of them were investing in pot stocks. It always made sense to me for the US to legalize weed. It would rip up the margins of drug cartels and provide some extra revenue if it was taxed at, sin tax type rates. It seemed inevitable to me, since so many people use it or are basically agnostic to the pot use of others. But that didn't mean pot stocks were a good idea. I wasn't that naive. As Buffett says, when you see the advent of the automobile coming, you don't buy cars, you short horses. I figured out of hundreds of weed companies, maybe 3 would still be around in 10 years. But then I found Grow Generation, ticker symbol GRWG. A pick and shovel, I said. These words haunt me. At the time, I thought I had discovered a gem. Here was a new company which would become the Home Depot of hydroponics. I figured this market placement kept them out of the regulatory purview and also positioned them to capture some revenue from non-weed plant growers. Moreover, when this big boom in at-home pot growing took off, as I was sure it would eventually do, GrowGen would be there to capture it. Quote, "Not everyone will get rich off growing weed, but all of them will be spending money at GrowGen." End quote. My dumbass in 2021.
I'm jacked. I'm jacked to the tits!
Just so you know, this company was posting profits. Sure, their PE multiple was high at 60 times trailing 12 months or something, but I figured we were early days here. Plus, the stock had already declined by about half, and so I saw my opportunity and I bought. At the time, I was actually buying a fair chunk, considering my total portfolio value back then. But I was convinced, and the reality is I was trying to find my own intelligent way to invest in the future, along with all the other saps. And I was a sap. A fool, goddammit. Greed. I wanted more. Sure, I had already doubled and almost tripled my money in TSM, but I wanted more, and that's just the ugly truth of it. So what did this greed do to me? It made me sloppy. I didn't read a single 10K. I didn't research management, and I sure as hell didn't pay any mind to the sketchy Google Street View of the stores. Had I looked a bit closer into this company I had read about, but didn't truly understand, I may have noticed a few things. 1. I may have noticed that the children of 2 C-suite members had previously worked as club promoters, and were now executive level at the company. 2. I may have noticed that there weren't many real customer reviews for these businesses. 3. I may have noticed the fraud allegations and convictions of various members of the board and C-suite. In short, I would have realized this was, among other things, a bullshit business. And worse, I told a friend about it, and she bought too. And then... Part 3. Hindenburg Research. Hindenburg Research is a short seller. An activist short seller at that. Its reports on Nikola, Lordstown Motors, Clover Health, Block, and most spectacularly, India's Adani Group, wiped billions from market caps and triggered multiple regulatory probes. Their report on GrowGen includes phrases like uninvestable and the brightest red flags we've ever seen, and, well, I'll just read this next bullet point verbatim. Quote, President and co-founder Michael Solomon was alleged by the FTC to have engaged in schemes to sell consumer credit card information without authorization. He has an extensive career in penny stock failures alongside his father, Abraham Solomon, a twice convicted fraudster with ties to the mob. End quote. Hindenburg Research. I owned this fucking thing. The stock was plummeting like crazy and I was frozen. I basically just held it on the off chance this report would turn out to be somehow false. It wasn't. The stock fell from $60 a share to $2 a share. Lights out. If you want to read the full Hindenburg report, it is linked in the written version of this post. Part 4. Rubbing my nose in it. Here's the bit that is so embarrassing I considered leaving it out. This report came out before I bought shares. I was looking only at the earnings, the valuation, and the business pitch. The result? I didn't have a clue that this report was out there until the stock started falling, and I finally started doing my homework. It fell with everything else in 2021, and like many companies that roared during that period, they never got back up again. What a damn fool I was to not look closer. Today, I would roll my eyes at someone who behaved as I did. I can't even use the "how was I supposed to know it was a fraud" cop-out because all I had to do was look. Suffice it to say that this burn taught me a very valuable lesson. If I want to put my money in a company, I damn well better know everything I can about them. I better read the 10Ks and, especially for smaller companies, make sure there aren't fraud allegations about managers with ties to the damn mob. I'm not mad at these folks at all. This is 100% on me for being greedy, lazy, and impatient all at the same time. All while looking down my nose at that same behavior among my peers. Part 5. Doublethink. I'm not sure how many 1984 fans there are out there, although something tells me my Substack has a disproportionate number of them. Anyway, in the book, there exists this idea of doublethink, whereby a person holds two conflicting ideas in their mind at the same time. This is how I think about my mistakes with GrowGen. One could argue that the mistake was simple lack of research, but I think the issue is deeper than that. I must have believed to some extent that by my sheer awareness of this inane investing culture, I was thereby immune to it. Nothing could be further from the truth. Instead, the opposite was happening. The more I criticized and sneered at my fellow man, the more I convinced myself of my own immunity. This, in turn, resulted in a false confidence which led me to be rash at the very moment I should have been overly cautious. All it takes is a few wins for an investor to suddenly believe he is smarter than he really is. And this, my friends, happened to me. Did I see a stock that had risen 600% in a year and see red flags? No. I rationalized with questionable statistics about the future wheat industry and the many people I already knew growing their own pot. Let's be real. I saw so much stuff I didn't own roar 50, 100, 200, and 1,000%, and I saw this company as an opportunity to do the same. Not the research project it should have been. I threw off the chains of realism for the cocaine of a zeitgeist frenzy. I forgot those chains were placed there by me as restraints, binding me in protection from my own foolishness. I have become greed, destroyer of sanity. Part 6. It either hurts or costs money. I have a family friend, an old Vietnam vet guy who reminds me of Clint Eastwood, and he said this to me once, quote, "Every time I've ever learned something, it either hurt or it cost me money." End quote. And this one hurt, and damn it if it didn't also cost me money. Today, I don't chase stuff as a rule. I don't care what the PEG is or what analysts say. I read reports and I focus on the boring stuff. I listen to earnings calls and I question my own beliefs as well as the statements of management. After GrowGen crashed, I started writing my letter to shareholder, me, which has turned into the Substack. I realized I was not holding my ideas accountable. My lessons from GrowGen led me to sell Celsius when I started sniffing a little bit of bullshit in the air. Does it mean I'm right? No, but at least if I'm wrong now, it will be because my thinking was wrong, or something truly unpredictable happened, not because I got greedy. I also stopped talking to idiots about investing. Turns out I never gained from that, even when I'm right. That Rari guy, broke. The accountant, lost it all. EV SPAC guy, yeah, he got wiped out. Oh, and that Croatian chick? She moved out and no one has heard from her since. Such was the story of my worst investing mistake to date. Me? I lost 4% of my portfolio. Everything else I owned did just fine. I'm still beating the market, even including that loss. This is a forgiving game if I learn the right lessons when I lose. GrowGen?
Zero!
Well, almost zero anyway. Thanks for listening to the Margin of Sanity podcast. If you like learning about bubbles and frenzies and human psychology, and you missed the episode about John Law and the Mississippi Scheme, go and check that out. I think you would really enjoy it. I learned a lot just by writing it. And it's available totally free on the Margin of Sanity Substack. All of these podcasts are available everywhere you listen on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube, as well as on the Substack app. I'm currently working on a write-up about the company OTC Markets Group, and I'll hopefully have that out a little bit later this week. Thanks for listening to the Margin of Sanity. Talk to you later.